always get to choose in this life, win and lose in this life. But I'ma prove in this life, we can move in this life. Can't change up, my team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year.
Welcome to the Diamond State Scouting, a part of the Say It Again Network. I am Josh Wingate at Josh Wingate 302 with my partner in crime at Bret LaGasse 67. And we have special guest tonight, Brian Bosarge. He is from actually Draft Countdown, one of the first places to get it started. I was just telling him behind scenes how I have not been there in a while. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah. And then we also have Jake Vogel at Real Jake Vogel. How you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Definitely. So we just got back from the Senior Bowl last week, which was exciting. First time there, me and Brett's first time there. I just found out that Brian, he lives in Mobile. Been going there since he was 7 years old. It was a great time. Don't you agree, Brett?
Yes, I did. I do agree. It was a fun time. It was different than I thought. Like I thought it was. I don't know. I didn't know what to expect out of it, but it was definitely a good time. Definitely a nice area. Definitely like I would go back. It's a small town city kind of vibe. I liked it, man. It was chill. I felt right at home. It was nice.
Yeah, Brian was actually saying that small town and everything. I was telling him how we're from Delaware and small town as well. Brian, I'm just curious. You've been going there for a while. How did you like it this year? Anything different that you're not used to, or what did you think overall about the Senior Bowl this year?
Well, I mean, it was a little bit different this year because the weather kind of like messed it up for everybody. It was weird. They had made the announcement on Wednesday that they would have practice outside, even though it rained the entire time. And then on Thursday, they would have the practice inside at the indoor facility at South Alabama, and it rained for about 10 minutes. I was fortunate. I was one of the few media that actually got to be inside of the practice.
Oh, nice.
As I was considered a broadcast partner, as I was I called the game on the radio on Saturday, so I was allowed in, which was good for me. But yeah, it was a different experience. I wish you guys had come a couple of years ago so y'all could see the difference in the way it used to be at Ladd Stadium
pre-COVID,
and now and pre-COVID as well, and to where it is now. Because I would love to see and hear how y'all thought the stadium experience was different. See, you guys don't know any better, so y'all just got the new hotness, but y'all never had to deal with the old and busted. It's a night and day difference, and you could ask like Mike Margate, who introduced me to you guys. Ask him the differences, and he'll tell you.
Yeah, no, I talked to him prior to it, and he was telling me pre-COVID it's completely different. So much more fun. It's more, you're able to do a lot more pre-COVID. But he agrees it's so much better now. Jim Nagy is doing such a great job. Love what he's doing, and the players that he's bringing in is just next level.
So his scouting is like top notch. Like the team he has scouting around the country to find these guys, the D3 guys, the D2 guys, FCS. He's finding guys. He does not care what school they come from. If they got the talent and he feels that they can play at the next level, he's getting there. Like the Senior Bowl has legit talent now. I mean, it has before, but I mean, like it's at another level recently.
I feel like last year was the first year where you're like, okay, getting a Heisman Trophy winner in there. I feel like even Jim Nagy was like, oh my God, this is huge, big time. But anyway, let's get into what we saw at the Senior Bowl, day one. Jake, I know you weren't there, but what did you take away? I'm sure you watched some of the players on TV. What did your takeaway day one from the Senior Bowl?
Well, I mean, you were one of the guys kind of giving me that information. You said how Carson Strong looked to be, the best quarterback on day one, and then that kind of changed over the next couple days.
Yeah.
Quarterback is not a position that Brian or I are really worried about for our NFL teams. Him with Joe Burrow and me with Lamar Jackson.
I might be the only one understand what that is.
Yeah, but I don't know. Tua still has a shot. I think he still has a decent shot. But that was interesting. That was definitely interesting to hear about Carson Strong, and then how the offensive linemen and especially the defensive group there really stood out. Trevor Penning was kind of near the top tier of the O linemen there. And then if you get to the interior guys, clearly Zion Johnson was just kind of the cream of the crop. When you talk about the Senior Bowl, as probably a top 2 guard prospect in this entire draft. You could include Kenyon Green, who wasn't there in that same conversation, but Zion Johnson, from everything I heard and everything I've seen so far, looks to be the part. And then you have guys like Trevor Penning, Bernard Raymond, Max Mitchell, all of those guys, Daniel Falele, competing and failing in some ways, but also showing growth throughout the week. So as a Ravens fan that wants to see offensive linemen added to the roster, it was an interesting week.
Yeah, and I talked to you a lot about those guys. One of the big players for that week, Brian, I don't know if you noticed it as well, Cole Strange. I think coming in, a lot of people weren't sure about him. But what was your takeaway from Cole Strange that day one? Because I'm in DMs texting Jake how excited I was about him.
Coming into this week, I had watched one game of Cole Strange's, and that's only because somebody's like, "Hey, man, watch this Kentucky game. He's an animal." And Marquand McCall is going to be drafted probably on day 3. Big 360-pound nose tackle, and he handled him in that game. Cole Strange had never played center, to my knowledge, before this week, and that's pretty much where most of his reps came from during practice, and he did a great job. He had his struggles on a couple reps, as did everybody, but for the most part, I thought he did a great job. I think after this week, at worst, he's probably an early day 3 guy. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he went late on day 2, but I think early day 3 is probably where he's going to be. But great week for Cole Strange.
Yeah, watching his film, I don't know if I watched the Kentucky game or not, because I was just that 1 month I was just trying to get everyone in for the Senior Bowl, and I just remember he looked light in his bottom half, and I was like, I don't know, I just got to see him against these guys at the Senior Bowl. And like you said, he had some bad reps, but then he came back the next rep, and he just took it to him. And I was so excited to see him. He definitely needs to fill out his lower half a little bit at the next level, but I agree, like early day 3 would be probably the latest he'll go, because he's got the talent. He showed he can do it, and someone's going to take a chance on this kid, and he was so much fun. And I know, Bret, you were big on him as well, but who else did you find big at this day 1, I would say, or overall? We can just hit the overall as well.
Well, as far as like the offensive line, if we want to stick with that theme, I'll throw a name out there that I thought played really well that doesn't get talked about as much, and that's Dylan Parham out of Memphis.
Yeah.
I thought he looked really good for the American team, and that system they were trying to implement there, and he did a phenomenal job pulling and sealing, and you saw it in practices a couple of times that the holes were open. It was behind him, and he pulled and sealed nicely. Like, he did a great job playing center. Looked natural there. Looked like he had some power. Had really good base there. They had him mixed in at guard too. He looked good there as well. And I thought he did a really good job. And I don't think he gets as much recognition as some of the other guys that were there. But I thought he did it. I thought he could be a day 3 prospect pretty easy. So, I mean, he's again another one transitioning to center as well.
Going into this, he was my top center coming in or not center, but top interior guy coming in to the Senior Bowl. I just love what I saw on tape. Obviously, the Boston College guy took over and just looked really good.
Zion.
Zion Johnson.
He looks like he's built in a lab. Like,
that's the initial thing we said when we first showed up.
When we showed up, I said Cole Strange looks like a guy you expect from FCS school.
Yeah.
And then Zion Johnson looked like he was built in a lab. Like, he was built exactly to play center or guard. But
yeah, for sure.
It's insane. But they both play with a mean, nasty streak. They both play with a different style, but it works.
So we don't have to stick to offensive line, but Brian, who did you see overall? We'll just hit the overall again from the Senior Bowl that caught your eye, offensive, defensively.
I want to touch on one thing for Zion Johnson because I think it's every day after practice he stayed, took snaps, including on Wednesday when it was pouring down rain. Zion Johnson's out there taking snaps after practice. That's just the work ethic that's going to just resonate with every single NFL team. But I mean, as far as standout players, I mean, you have to talk about Jermaine Johnson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was only there for 2 days. He did the Javon Kinlaw, 2 days, I'm out.
Old
and that's
Georgia
all
guy.
he needed. I mean, Jermaine Johnson dominated every single rep he was in practice, and probably moved himself from early day 2 to mid round 1. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I moved him ahead of in my top 300 that dropped today. I believe I moved him ahead, or he's right there with David Ajabo for that number 4 edge guy. I think Johnson's a real deal. And you talk about built in a lab. That guy right there,
for sure,
is cut out of stone.
Yep. And I think the reason he went under the radar is because of his journey, getting in trouble, going to JUCO, then coming back to Florida State or going to Florida State. So I think he's definitely under the radar. But man, did he put himself on the map at the Senior Bowl.
So yeah, other than that, defensively, I know Bret and I saw Eric Johnson out there, and we've been hyping up Eric Johnson the entire time. He's someone I didn't expect coming in. I believe, what is it, Missouri State, Missouri State, right?
Missouri State.
He just, like, we looked at the All-22 the day it rained. I think it was the second day. We threw it on, and then he just started popping out. We thought he was Jermaine Johnson there for a little bit. And he was just throwing people around. He was playing the run. He was getting to the quarterback. It was fun to watch. Bret, what did you see from him that really caught your eye? Because you're the one that really first saw him.
Yeah. So when we were watching the team drills, we were watching them do the installs. And Brian Robinson, who probably has the best vision at the Senior Bowl as a running back.
That's my guy.
He had nowhere to go with the ball. And I was like, I saw the entire offensive line collapse. And it was Eric Johnson. And I was trying to figure out who it was. And I kept looking. I thought it was Jermaine Johnson because, I mean, that dude was wreaking havoc. But it was Eric Johnson. He collapsed the guard into the center, which knocked the defensive lineman down and knocked the entire left side of the line down. And there was nowhere to go by himself. And then you saw him do it again. And in the one-on-ones, he's just overpowered offensive lineman. And he's throwing people around, like, near the end, so he's showing his nastiness. I saw a guy who was, like, ticked off that he was not a Division I guy. Like, I saw a guy who said, I belong on this field, and I'm going to prove it every day if I have to. I absolutely loved it. I think he was like a perfect, like, 5-tech.
Yep.
Yeah, probably about a 5-tech. I think it was probably his best home. But I think he could play a little bit of everything, and I think you're going to get a guy who's just going to play with a high motor all the time. And he's going to play like he's pissed off, like he should have won the first overall pick. He just has that mentality.
So, Brian, I did see that you shook your head. What did you see from him as far as?
I mean, everything that Bret said and that. I mean, and this was a guy that wasn't even supposed to be at the Senior Bowl. He was on his way back home from the NFLPA game, gets to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, and his agent says, hey, change flights, you're heading to Mobile. They want you in the game. And then, like Bret said, he got there like he belonged and should have been there the whole time. I was a little disappointed he didn't get a combine invite.
He didn't. He should have.
He did not. So that's a little upsetting, but no, he was another guy, like you said, just tremendously talented. In a week where the best players were all on the defensive line for the most part, and that showed in the game. Eric Johnson was definitely up there as far as that goes, as a guy who I had not even watched before this week. This was my first thought of Eric Johnson. I luckily I do have one Missouri State game on the old external hard drive here I can go to and watch. But,
lucky you, I don't think I have one.
But that was that was an eye opener for sure with that guy. He went from who is he to fourth round.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked maybe a little earlier. I mean, someone could take a chance on him. But I feel like a lot of the guys that got a late call, got in there, took advantage of that situation. Another guy that we saw, Braylon Sanders. He got there day one, but he was also a late show up. I feel like, to me, he was the best receiver that week. You also had Calvin Austin. I'm trying to think who else was there that popped off to us.
I think Christian Watson was another name that a lot of people Watson.
Know. Yeah, Watson was the best one there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Day one, at least, Braylon Sanders, fingertip catches. But as well, I know we don't have a lot of quarterback needs in this group other than Bret. What do we think about the quarterback group? Because I feel like national media-wise, there's a lot of misconceptions from what we saw to what they're actually saying. I know, and I was shocked that I didn't like what Kenny Pickett did that week. Against open air, I feel like he took a lot of checkdowns rather than showing off his arm a little bit. But I felt like Malik Willis was one of the guys that got better each day. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big Willis guy. We do a little Willis watch here since the beginning of the season. But, Jake, what did you think about the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I didn't really dial into them too much, but I listened to. You
have Lamar Jackson, you don't have
to. Hopefully they get an extension with Lamar soon. I'm not sure if it's going to happen before the season or not. But Malik Willis, I agree, seemed to be the guy that stood out in the group as the week went on. And other than him, I'd say at the top of the draft, teams are going to have to rely on their 2021 Kenny Pickett tape and Matt Corral. I think those are the three guys that are going to be at the top of the pecking order at the quarterback position. And then after that, you get into the Carson Strongs and whoever else is, I guess Howell as well, Sam Howell from North Carolina. But it's not a super strong quarterback group, which hurts teams that don't need it. And it helps the teams. It doesn't really help the teams that need it, because then you're like, I don't know if I should be investing in this quarterback that might not really be worth the pick. So I don't know. It's kind of a down year, I believe.
Which Brian, means down at the top of the slide.
Yeah, Brian, I feel like you disagreed on the Kenny Pickett thing.
I think going in, if you like Kenny Pickett, you still like Kenny Pickett. If you had reservations about Kenny Pickett, I think he did nothing to alleviate that. Unlike Malik Willis, who coming into this week I had in the mid-80s on my board.
Yeah.
I was not a fan. After watching the Ole Miss game and the Syracuse game this year where he took a combined 15 sacks, I was like, this man has no pocket presence whatsoever. And I still saw a little bit of that this week, but he did get better. And I thought he handled it well in his limited pass reps during the game. The thing you see, and I've seen Malik Willis in person now twice. I covered the Lending Tree Bowl here in Mobile when they played Eastern Michigan, and I saw him, in the Senior Bowl. And you don't want to invoke the name Mike Vick. But when you see him run, he takes those glide steps like Michael Vick did. And it's fun to watch. It really is. A team's going to take Malik Willis probably higher than he should. But if you have a plan in place, I think maybe a bridge quarterback 1 year, I think it can pay off for you. People are going to connect him to Pittsburgh unless they trade up. I don't think he's going to go. He's going to be available. A team I like as a fit is Washington.
My team is Minnesota. I want to see him in Minnesota just because I do want a team where he can sit and wait and play it the following year.
I would not have connected. I didn't think Minnesota would be in that market, but if they are, that would be a good fit as well.
Kirk is a free agent next year.
Do they fit that offense? Does he fit that offense? I don't know. He's still struggling to go through full field reads.
I was just my whole process was I wanted to look at it as where can he sit and learn for a little bit and then play, and that's where Minnesota came to mind. He can have a veteran quarterback over top of him. Probably won't help him at all. I mean, I don't think Kirk Cousins is the type of guy that's going to sit there and teach somebody. But
how about the Giants with Dayball?
Yeah, but
he can fit that offense and sit behind Daniel Jones. I mean, Daniel Jones ain't going to teach him much, but
they love him some Daniel Jones though.
They do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The higher ups do.
I think people are sleeping on Sam Howell a little bit. I think people are taking the 2021 tape and just writing him off a little bit. If you go back to the 2020 tape when he had the De'Ami Brown and the two running backs, I mean, you see a much better player. I think he tried to do too much this year, maybe a little bit, as evidenced by his 900 rushing yards he had. But I thought he was probably, other than Willis, probably the second best quarterback consistently day to day and into the game. As far as a week, I like Carson Strong coming into the season, but I think I'm out.
Yeah.
So day one, Carson Strong, I was like, man, he looks good. He's moving well. He's moving better than I expected. He's throwing well on the run. He's throwing strong. He's confident. He was the best quarterback for the national team day one. Then come day two, I know it was raining, but you're going to have to play in the rain, and he just looked like
he did the opposite of Willis.
Yeah, and then like day three, he was really bad in red zone drills, and that's scary. Like he just wasn't pinpoint precise in red zone drills whatsoever, and it was just the difference was appalling between him and some of the other guys. And he just kept going down, and it sucked because I was like, man, started becoming a Carson Strong guy. I was like, okay, he's ascending, and then he just kind of tapered off. Yeah. I still think there's talent to work with. Like if you can get him consistent, but I think he's going to need like to go with like a Jordan Palmer in the offseason to work with to like Josh Allen did, but I don't think he has the ceiling to Josh Allen.
But, yeah,
what was the strength of his was his deep ball accuracy, and that was just nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
no, and this is the time to show that off, and you're playing with receivers you never played with, so you connect with them. That's huge, and he was off. I was surprised he had Bo Melton open on a couple of those drills, and he missed them a couple times.
And so there's two guys in this draft. One guy, I'm a little higher on Carson Strong than a lot of people. I think he's in the top 5 conversation. A guy that I'm a little lower on is Desmond Ridder. I'm not a big Ridder guy. I just watch his film. Yeah, he's. I feel like he's more of a West Coast guy. He's going to have to get in a rhythm, and when you watch, he just makes some really boneheaded decisions sometimes that make you like pull your hair out most of the time. And so that's my question is, who would you take, Ridder or Strong, if you had to decide between these two guys? Bret, I'll go with you, and then Brian and Jake.
That one's really tough, but Ridder started coming on day 2 and 3 more than Strong did. And he looked, when Ridder was on the run, day 2 in the rain, he actually didn't look that bad. Wasn't pretty, but it wasn't as bad. Like he started playing better. He looked a little better day 2. They're both erratic. They both make mistakes. They both have a decent, like Ridder's arm isn't as good as Strong's, but Ridder has a good arm, more than good enough in the NFL. But I like Ridder's athleticism and ability to make plays on the run and off plane. So I would probably take Ridder if I had to take the 2. Because if I get him hot and get him in a rhythm, I can do really good with. And Strong, if you get him out of the pocket, he starts getting into trouble, and then you start getting uncomfortable. So at least Ridder I can work with athleticism. So I'd probably Ridder.
Brian, what do you think about that?
I'm going to agree with Bret here, and probably Ridder. It's close, but I'm probably going with Ridder just because of the athleticism and the ability to make plays off script. I don't think that tool is in the tool bag there for Carson Strong to be able to make those off script throws.
Yeah, Jake, I have a feeling you're agreeing. Yeah, I'm the lone wolf here.
I'm right there with you guys. I said that a while back, probably like in October, that I thought Desmond Ridder had some really solid athleticism to his game. He has enough arm talent to make the throws, but his consistency isn't great. And I think when you're comparing those two players, you have to go with the higher floor player, which is Ridder, because of that athleticism. It gives you a little bit of that leeway. If he's having an off day, at least he has the athleticism. Whereas Carson Strong, I don't know.
Yeah, so I get the athleticism. I feel like people in today's NFL, athleticism big, but if you throw on Desmond Ritter's tape from 2020, 2021, I feel like you're getting the same player. And I feel like those mistakes that he makes just randomly that come out of nowhere, just they blow my mind and they get me so frustrated. That could just be why I'm down on him so much. But I throw on Carson Strong's tape, and like Brian said earlier, his deep ball is beautiful on film. At the Senior Bowl, it might not have been great. I don't know what happened. But on tape, he's got a beautiful deep ball that's accurate and great. And I think he's a competitor too. He might not be the competitor that you have in previous drafts, because I don't think you really have one other than Corral right in this draft. But I don't know. I'm a Carson Strong guy over Ritter. But he does give you the upside in the athletic ability. So other than that, guys that weren't at the Senior Bowl, it could be juniors that couldn't be there, whatever, could be the top guys in the draft. Jake, who are you excited about in this draft overall?
Well, since you brought up the Senior Bowl, I'm going to bring up a couple names that are slightly under the radar that should have been at the Senior Bowl. James Cook from Georgia, running back. To me, he is a very talented guy that could go on day 2 or day 3. He obviously has the receiving skills you want. To me, he seems more NFL capable than he even was in the college game. And perhaps in the right situation, he could be, the RB1 of a team that still uses 2 backs, but kind of the guy that's more heavily used. So he's one of them. And then another guy I want to bring up is a Georgia player as well, Quay Walker. He was supposed to be there. He stands out on film for me, but seems to go unnoticed by a lot of people I interact with on Twitter. Channing Tindall's the hotter name after Nakobe Dean in the Georgia linebacking trio. But I really like Quay Walker, number 7 at UGA. So I'm interested in both of those guys and many more, but I just wanted to bring up those 2 names.
I can't tell. What's that name on your shirt?
Georgia.
Couldn't tell. Brian, who are you excited about who couldn't have been there at the Senior Bowl or top overall players?
I'm still curious why Cook and Walker both pulled out of the Senior Bowl. I haven't heard any reason other than probably their agent told them to.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about a quarterback that nobody was really talking about before the Shrine game on Thursday night. And I don't even know how many people watched that because it was on Thursday night while everybody was still composed with the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
But a quarterback I've loved all season long watching him is Brown quarterback E.J. Perry. And I don't know if you guys have watched him, but I watched a few games of Brown this year just specifically to watch Perry. And this dude carries that whole team on his back. That is a team of just pure garbage. And he carried them to more wins than they had any right to win. And he ends up winning in a losing effort. His team lost, but he won the offensive MVP award at the Shrine game. So E.J. Perry, little homework for you fellas. Get on that. He's currently my number 9 QB in this class behind everybody that was at the Senior Bowl and Corral and Caleb Ellaby, who was a junior. But E.J. Perry is my top-rated quarterback that isn't an underclassman or was at the Senior Bowl.
I just looked up. I don't have film from him. I see that he's a Boston College transfer. But I'll have to find it because I like watching the quarterbacks just for the fact that everyone likes to talk about him.
Super good athlete.
Didn't he play basketball too?
I believe so.
Yeah, he played. Yeah.
Bret, what do you got?
He's like Brad Johnson here. Oh, all right. So we're talking just overall players.
Overall players in this draft that might not have been at the Senior Bowl. No one had a chance to see that they can either watch or check out a little more.
So there's quite a bit, but I feel like with this defensive line and edge performance at the Senior Bowl, I think guys like Drake Jackson, even though he's a 3-year junior from USC, I think he's getting overlooked all of a sudden by people because they're talking about the most recent. Yeah, we're still people overlooking DeMarvin Leal because the guy like Perry on Winfrey just went and killed it.
That is someone that I feel like is being overlooked coming into the draft. And I haven't watched his 21 film. I watched his 2020. But coming in, he was regarded as a top 5 guy before the draft. And then we're looking at mock drafts now, and he's at like what? Late first, end of the second in most mock drafts.
And I thought he'd be a little higher than that. I mean, I think he's
athletic guy, moved around the offense or the defensive line, didn't really stick anywhere.
I think he'd be disruptive, honestly. He's definitely a disruptive guy.
For sure. My guy, I'm going to take a top-tier guy and offensive tackle, Charles Cross. He is just, I feel like he is, oh boy, Brian. If I would have put him in last year's draft, this is my thing I'm saying right now, he would have been my number 2 tackle, just under Slater. Because I think he's that good. He's a technician. He might not be a mauler, but he's a very good technician, really good at pass blocking, and he gets the job done in the run block. But that is my guy. He OT'd 1 in this draft, and I'm not really seeing it with Evan Neal as a lot of people are saying, but that's just me. Brian, do you disagree on what I just said there? I saw you kind of cringe a little bit.
No, I love Charles Cross.
Yeah, okay.
And he's awesome. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if you can go wrong with any of the top 3 guys. I think they're all just gonna be studs from the get-go.
Who's your 3?
Neal, Aquanu, and Cross. I mean, I love those 3 guys. And I remember for years now, it was just like offensive tackle prospects were like few and far between, and it feels like now it's just we're just inundated with these guys every year now, and it's like with last year with Sewell and Slater, and this year and the year before with the 4 guys that went in the top 12, Wirfs and Wills and Andrew Thomas and those guys. And it's just it's like a renaissance all of a sudden of the offensive tackle position. And like I said, I think those 3 guys and Trevor Penning, I don't want to leave him out. I think he's a top 20 prospect as well. But those all 4 of those guys I think are going to be day 1 NFL starters. But Cross he's so fun to watch, man.
Oh my God, he's a technician. Like he goes exactly where he needs to be. I don't think I've seen him make a mistake in the pass game at all. Like he's just such a technician. He's got such athleticism. And watching his 2020 film, I had a note saying I want to see him anchor a little better. His anchor has improved tenfold from last year to this year, and his body is filled out a little more. He looks like an NFL left tackle now, and it's exciting to see. And I know Jake is a big Aquanu guy. I just want to see him in his position drills a little bit because he gets beat around the edge to me a little more than I want to see him. And you don't really get to see him do your traditional pass protection. He does more of the hot sets. But I just want to see him in his position drills just to make sure that I feel comfortable with him. But in my opinion, if he doesn't work out at tackle, he's going to be an all-pro offensive guard at the next level. I graded him as an all-pro player, but if he doesn't work out at tackle, I think a guard. Vogel, I will let you rave about Aquanu.
Yeah, I was just going to comment when you said the thing about Cross. I was looking through my notes. I have like 5 negative plays against Alabama, and all of them come in the run game. So you're right. He is somebody that's like not gonna have many negative plays when it comes to pass protection. I mean, he's just so freaking solid. Aquanu, I think, is maybe even more fun to watch, especially if you enjoy seeing that nasty streak. To me, if you like Trevor Penning, just throw on Akeem Aquanu's tape and enjoy that, because he is every bit as good as Trevor Penning when it comes to pancaking guys, but he does it in a much controlled manner. He's not going to really get called for penalties at the next level with his nasty streak, whereas Penning might have some issues here and there. Aquanu is just so ridiculously fun to watch. He dominates guys in the run game. I think he moves extremely well for his size. His second level blocks are insane. I think he would fit a Shanahan offense, that wide zone, outside zone, pass blocking, run blocking scheme. But I also think he would do perfectly fine in a gap power. So he's scheme versatile, in my opinion. And clearly he's one of the top 3 guys. One of my favorite picks for the Ravens. I doubt he's even in range, but if he's at like 9, 8 or 9, I'm going to be screaming at the top of my lungs for the Ravens to move up to go get him.
So I'm going to transition because you saying being at the Ravens, and there's a guy that we always talk about, and Brian kind of shook his head that he won't be there. I'm curious what Brian thinks about Nakobe Dean. I always say that he's a top 10 pick. I don't see him leaving the top 10. What is your thoughts on him being a possible top 10 pick?
Your saving grace is how do teams the positional value.
Yeah.
How are teams going to view an off-ball linebacker? I would. It's like last year with Micah Parsons, I guess, because he basically Dallas's plan with him offset that. But like with Devin Bush a couple of years ago, kind of went higher than I thought maybe he would. And so that's the only thing that I think would get Dean down to where the Ravens are. I love him as a player. His coverage ability is just off the charts. And that's what you need in a modern day linebacker. I think he can attack the passer as well when called upon, when needed. Nakobe Dean is linebacker 1 for me. And
there we go. I think he's linebacker 1. I think Lloyd, you get a lot of splash plays from him. I think he loses track of the ball sometimes with his eyes. Doesn't get sideline to sideline as much as Dean does. But you definitely get that pass rushing ability from Lloyd, and he's got such closing speed on him, and he'll make that big play in the passing game.
I would
he's
say
a lot
that,
like Zach Cunningham, where he's probably gonna. Zach Cunningham went day 2 though, but he's a lot like him, where he's a little undersized, gets underneath blocks better, and he's quick off the ball, but he can get lost into traffic and get in the fold a little bit. But he has that length and coverage ability.
Yeah, I was going to say Lloyd definitely has the length. A lot of his negative plays in the games I've watched have actually come with him on the edge, but then he also gets a few splash plays. So, it was like boom, 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 negative, negative, negative for me when he's, standing up as an outside linebacker rushing the passer, but then he'll get the splash play where he puts a spin move on the tackle and goes inside and he gets to the quarterback. So I think he has some serious skill rushing the passer, and really it's the athleticism. But I just like Dean a little bit more when it comes to coverage. Lloyd is going to have that length. He's going to be able to hold that over Dean for his whole career. Yeah. But to me, Nakobe versus Lloyd is going to be a good conversation come April. It's really about the flavor of guy you like. Some teams are going to want that length in the middle of the field, and other guys are going to want the guy that maybe has more intangibles when you're looking at the leadership aspect of things and the coverage grades. I just think Dean is slightly better, but you're not getting a bad player. I think both of them have to go in the first round.
Definitely. And as a Cowboy fan, I keep seeing the Kobe Dean mock draft to Dallas. And I'm like, there's no possible way he makes it to Dallas at 26. But let's get into because we got 2 fellow AFC North fans, Ravens, and potential Super Bowl champion Bengals. Let's get into the Ravens real quick, just because we don't know where the Bengals are going to be drafting. Hopefully it's 32 for Brian. So, Jake, I'll let you talk about your Ravens. What do you guys need? I'm in a lot of spaces with you about the Ravens. I feel like I'm a fellow Raven fan as well right now. So what do you think you guys need? What are some players that you'd like to see taken? And I'll go around.
Yeah, for sure. So you clearly know, being in as many spaces as you are, Josh,
Yeah.
that priority number one is offensive line for Baltimore. This year, the Ravens were decimated by injuries more than any other team, especially when it comes down to evaluating how impactful the injuries were. Not just the sheer amount, but the guys that were out, and how that affected the Ravens season. So offensive line is critical. We would love to get a right tackle that can also play some left tackle in case the Ronnie Stanley injury, lingers, or it becomes a career threatening type deal. So I'll get that out of the way. If a top three offensive tackle is on the board at 14, I think you just send in the card. That's it. You don't have to consider anybody else there. That's going to be the pick. However, that seems very unlikely in a lot of these mock drafts that we're doing, fans are doing. To me, right after that position, edge makes a lot of sense. You go with one of the best edge rushers, Trayvon Walker out of Georgia, Jermaine Johnson, a former Georgia player, stand out at the Senior Bowl. I'm not just saying that because he's a former Georgia guy.
No,
Clearly, a very talented guy. So an edge position would make sense. David Ajabo, the Ravens have the Michigan connection. We just brought back Mike McDonald, who was with the Ravens, left for a single year. And during that year, Mike McDonald in Michigan made it to the college football playoffs. So we brought him back. He's our defensive coordinator now. So the connection there makes sense. And then after that, you're talking about corner prospects or the very rare Kyle Hamilton slide. So those are my obvious picks. And then after that, you can get into the linebacker, Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean conversation. And after that, defensive line. So Jordan Davis would probably be up there, and Devontae Wyatt. Maybe those guys are trade back scenarios. But
personally, I would like to see the Ravens trade back.
I think trade back makes a ton of sense.
Those late tackles there could be available for you. You guys have enough picks in the fourth round that you can possibly make a move to move back into the first round. I think that's an option for you guys, and maybe get that defensive lineman cornerback. Brian, I bring up the Hamilton slide out of the top 10 a lot, and you mentioned before the position value, and I feel like the position value in the NFL for safety isn't great. I know Kyle Hamilton, he is sideline to sideline coverage ability, closing speed's great. I don't think he's very good at run support, but his coverage ability is great. Do you think that's a possibility? And what do you think about your hated team, the Ravens?
I mean, Kyle Hamilton, talent-wise, probably one of the 5 best in the class. Yeah. But like again, you said positional value, and it's so weird because the impact that a safety has in the modern NFL game, but yet NFL teams still don't seem to value it on draft day outside of your Sean Taylors, back in the day. But yeah, no, I mean, is it unrealistic that Kyle Hamilton could slide? No, I think the Jets' second pick at 10 is probably where that slide would end, in my opinion. I think that's, definitely fits a need for them for sure. And just the talent and BPA would be so great at that pick. But yeah, no, I mean, you look at some of the better, most impactful players like Derwin James, slides to 17, and he was one of the best players in that draft class. It makes no sense, but it happens all the time.
Do you have anything to add to the Ravens? Do you want to talk about your Bengals? Start us off with them.
We could talk about the Bengals. I mean, it's not uncommon knowledge what their top need obviously is. It's the offensive line. I mean, they've given up 11 sacks in 3 playoff games, 9 in 1 game to Tennessee. The debate last year before the draft was, do you take Chase? Do you take Sewell? I was team Chase for what it's worth, and that seems to have worked out. I love Penei Sewell. I had him as my number 1 player in the class last year, above Trevor Lawrence. So
you had Sewell?
I had Sewell with
you would have hated me last year. I was an anti-Sewell guy.
But I mean, and I love Penei Sewell, but I mean, the choice was obvious, and it transformed the Bengals offense this year to what it is. But you're going to have to address it. I said the other day, you either need to sign or trade for 2 and draft 2 at some point. You need 4 new bodies in there. Jonah Williams is the only one that I think should be safe on the front line at 32.
There you go.
32. Fingers crossed. I would love Zion Johnson as a guy
there you go.
To target. Should Trevor Penning slide? Sure. I would have said Bernard Raymond before Senior Bowl week.
Oh my gosh, that was my guy before Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he struggled.
Day 2.
But I don't really think there's any other offensive tackles that I like in that spot. If Penning's off the board, but it's like Zion Johnson. I love Ed Ingram, the guard from LSU. I think 32, 31 might be a bit high, but maybe you trade out, the first round if you get the right call. You could talk me into corner. I think that's going to be a need. I think Eli Apple has played admirably, but he's a free agent, and his admirable play may get him paid by somebody. And you're going to cut Trey Waynes. That was free agency money not well spent. But Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton was great money spent.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awuzie have been great. An edge rusher. They've got to get another guy. Joseph Asai, I think they wanted him to be that guy. And he looked like he was heading that way before he got hurt in the preseason. You in theory would have him back, but Hubbard is great in spurts, but not consistently great all the time. Hendrickson is great all the time. That was another great free agent signing. So I think those are your top 3 spots to look. Probably interior offensive line, corner, and edge is the in the first round.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to chime in real quick. You're talking about safety and a guy that's up for a contract, but I expect not to leave at all from Cincinnati is Jesse Bates. People in Baltimore absolutely love him as a prospect, and I'm telling all of them that there's no way he's leaving Cincinnati. They have a ton of money this year, and they like to keep their own. So I don't see him going anywhere, but I do want to give respect to a guy that is supremely talented at the position, and the reason that Cincinnati doesn't really have to look for safety very high in this draft.
At worst case scenario, they franchise tag. I mean, to me, that's the worst case scenario, and that's probably going to be about 14, 15 million for a safety. And best case scenario is they get a deal done before free agency starts. I expect that's going to happen with his play, especially his play in the playoffs. I think he's going to end up being one of the highest paid safeties in the league before free agency starts.
His closing speed is ridiculously off the charts.
Brett, what do you think about Bengals, Ravens?
All right,
draft scenarios.
I have the past drafts pulled up here, and I want to touch on something that Brian said. He's kind of like alluded to it. Impact players. When you talk about draft value with safeties kind of falling and stuff like that, positions of value, it's impact players. A lot of teams that are good at drafting, like the Ravens have been known to be good drafters. They draft impact players. And what I mean by that is guys who touch the ball. So they've drafted Rashad Bateman, Patrick Queen. Even though he's off-ball linebacker, he affects the ball. Marquise Brown, Hayden Hurst, Lamar Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, and Ronnie Stanley. So since 2016, they've drafted one offensive lineman, and the rest have been like impact players. And Ronnie Stanley, you can argue, was probably the best tackle of that draft, or up there as one of the best tackles of that draft. So they knew, unless you have a can't miss prospect at tackle or a can't miss value, to get an impact player. And Jamar Chase for the Bengals was a huge impact player.
Yeah.
They're not in the position they're in right now by drafting Penei Sewell. I love Sewell. I love what I've seen from Sewell as a rookie. I wasn't a fan of him coming in, but I love what I've seen. But Jamar Chase changes your offense. with the ball in his hands. He makes plays. The ball doesn't have to be perfect. He's going to break tackles. He's going to make plays. That's why he was my top receiver. My top player was Kyle Pitts, but Jamar Chase was an absolute stud. And it was a can't-miss impact player. So, like, looking at the Bengals, I would have to agree with Brian as far as cornerback. I think corner should be something they should really look at. As low as they are, they could probably safely find an offensive line. But trading out is probably the better value there, unless somebody falls. As far as the Ravens go, I would say where they're at, they need to take the best player available because they've had a lot of injuries that showed a lot of holes for a team that usually doesn't. So I would say, like, secondary could still be a possibility because their secondary was struggling. So I still think corner's a possibility there, especially like Stingley. I can't see them like passing up a guy like Stingley or one of the other top corners in this draft. I really think Ravens will probably stick with their tried and true and either do something at the cornerback position or they'll probably go maybe another receiver because they still could use another receiver. Although I do like Bateman.
Yeah, I think Ravens-wise, I said it, trade back is the best scenario for them.
Yeah.
I feel like they have needs that they absolutely need right now. Obviously, offensive line's a big one. Lamar Jackson, you got to protect him. He's in his last year. But I feel like they have enough needs that the trade back will help them greatly, especially for them wanting to move back in. I would assume they would want to move back in to the first round just because of how many picks they have and the opportunity they have to do that. Maybe get a playmaker on the defensive side and offensive side of the ball as far as like top talented player. If you can get that tackle, maybe a Penning if you trade back, and then maybe get that Jordan Davis because I feel like he's going to fall. I was a top 10 guy on Jordan Davis beginning of the year, but I feel like Nick Saban kind of showed what you can do to take him out of the game in that SEC championship game, and I feel like NFL is going to try and do the same thing.
I do want to say I went back and watched that game when looking at Nakobe Dean, and I think that the negative talk about Jordan Davis is completely overblown. I wasn't specifically watching Davis in that game, but I noticed every play, and to me, he was not bad in the SEC championship game.
I think it was.
I really think it was more just like regular broadcast, and maybe he was looking gassed. But to be honest, he was not bad. He was making some splash plays.
Yeah, I think it was in my eyes later, and he had to take more plays off later, and he set out more drives just because of how they were keeping him out there. So just to touch on, because this group doesn't really care, Steelers, Browns. Do we think they need a quarterback? I know the Steelers need one. Do you think the Browns are sold on Baker, or do you think they're going to go for a quarterback this year in a not so great quarterback class?
I don't know. I'm happy to go first unless Brian wants to. I think Pittsburgh definitely wants to go quarterback. They've been heavily linked to Malik Willis, so that will be an interesting thing to watch come April. And then the Browns, in my opinion, aren't going to move on from Baker Mayfield yet. This is not a very strong draft class, so I would be surprised if they took a quarterback early. In my opinion, they would be better to just wait another year and see how Baker develops and then assess the next draft class because I think it's supposed to be stronger at the quarterback position.
Yeah, Brian, what do you think?
I'm with Jake on the Browns assessment for sure. I think they want to see a fully healthy Baker this year, and I think I would almost bet a large amount of money that their first pick will be a receiver, a big threat receiver, which is something they lacked last year for sure. Pittsburgh, I mean, there's a whole lot of smoke with them and Willis for sure. I just think if they want him, they're going to have to go up and get him. I don't think they're going to be able to sit back and he's going to fall. They have made moves on players up in the draft when they wanted notably Troy Polamalu, they moved up to get. Devin Bush, they moved up to get. So if they want a guy, they'll spend the draft capital to go up and do it. So if Willis is their guy, I'm not going to doubt that. But at this point, I mean, the word is maybe you have to go up to 6 to do it to Carolina.
Wow.
Shoot.
Do you think Willis will be the top quarterback off the board?
I do.
Okay. Brett, what do you think as far as these two teams go?
So I agree. There's no way the Browns move off of Baker right now. I think they keep him one more year. I think Brian's right. They probably go after a big play receiver because that's really what Baker needs to really stand out. And he's got the offensive line, the run game. So there's like no excuse. Get a big play wide receiver, and the defense is solid. So you're evaluating Baker with no excuses, no whatsoever. You see exactly what you have. And then 23, you can get a young quarterback and hit the ground running, go get a veteran quarterback, something. But, yeah, I think they'll go one more year with Baker. I think he maybe has shown enough. I'm still a little skeptical with myself. But I think Pittsburgh, they don't sit on their hands for a quarterback. They're a well-run organization. They know how to draft. They know how to build a roster. And when they want something, they're going to go get it. Did they trade up for Roethlisberger in 2004? I can't remember.
No, I think they sat.
Did they sit?
I don't think they traded up for him.
Okay. I couldn't remember. So, but I can see them trading up for Willis. And I think at this point, I think they'll leap up for him because they know quarterback is the biggest difference for them. And they know they can build their team. They've done such a good job of drafting in the lower part of the rounds because of their usually successful team. I think they'll actually trade up and get their quarterback because they know the rest will fall in place. We just keep drafting like we do. We keep signing smart free agents. We take care of our guys in-house, and the rest will come. And they don't want to waste a guy like T.J. Watt. Like, they know they have a star in T.J. Watt. They know they have good players on their team. They know they're, like, not far off. So they get their quarterback, and they take the next step. So I think they're not going to be afraid to go up and go get Malik Willis.
Yeah, I think they might have moved up for Edmonds as well. The safety, brother of Tremaine. Terrell. I think they traded up for Terrell Edmonds.
I think they did as well, yeah.
That was a big shocker when it happened. A lot of people were like, wait, I don't think you understand which Edmonds you're talking about.
You wanted the wrong Edmonds. That's something when you wanted.
That was definitely a funny one. But last year, the thing I wanted to comment on was they were heavily linked to Najee Harris, and they ended up getting him. So sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. So perhaps they do end up getting Malik Willis, even though they're heavily linked to him.
And I don't think they want Carson Strong because they want a mobile quarterback. They've been pretty open about they want a mobile quarterback. Yeah, they don't want this sit in the pocket. I mean, all three of the quarterbacks in the division can move. So even Baker, I mean, they can move, make stuff happen off script. So I think they want that. They don't want to fall behind. And Pittsburgh does a really good job of not falling behind. But they still do what they do best. And I think Malik Willis fits what they do and fits their mentality. And I can see him, just listen to him talk, I can see him as a Mike Tomlin guy. He just kind of has that same bravado as Mike Tomlin. It's like a perfect fit, really.
I think we saw early on they're trying to hype up Mason Rudolph a little bit before saying that he's their guy. And I've heard a couple people, and I've heard a couple people say, don't get me on the Josh Rosen. I've seen a couple people talk about how Mason Rudolph just needs a little time to develop, and I think he's had enough time. We've seen him out there. He's just awful. There's no way you're going to keep Mason Rudolph on your team. And I agree as far as the Browns go, a receiver would really help them. You have to – I said it for I'm trying to think what team it was, but I said you need to give all the weapons possible to this team. Lamar Jackson, I think it was. Give him all the weapons possible. They did it for Dak in Dallas. And see what he can do. If he can't do anything, let's move on. And I think that's what you're going to get from Baker Mayfield here next season. But do we have any, before we get out of here, do we have any things that we want to talk about for this draft Any players you want to shout out to, maybe some people to see or watch? Jake, what do you have? Do you have anyone you want to shout out or anything?
I just had a quick question about the Brown situation and the receiver position in general.
Yeah.
Who do you think is that ideal target? If they take wide receiver 1, who is that guy for the Cleveland Browns? Is it Treylon Burks, that bigger wide receiver that can move all around the formation and still make big plays? Or is it like one of the Ohio State guys, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave? Is it possibly George Pickens? Is it London, Drake London? I just want to hear what you guys think about. Or I didn't even mention Jameson Williams from Alabama. Like, he's one of those you have to sit and wait for him to heal, but he's probably wide receiver 1 if he doesn't get injured. From the NFL perspective, explosive playmaker. That's kind of what a lot of teams go for. So who is that guy for Cleveland in a critical year for Baker Mayfield?
I haven't been able to watch these receivers, so I'll let Bret and Brian take care of that.
So I think Baker is the kind of guy that needs a guy to catch and run. Kind of like Breeze had with Michael Thomas in a sense, but not at the same time. But I think Jahan Dotson would be perfect as that explosive receiver, or Sky Moore from Western Michigan. Yeah, I think he would be really good. Well, Jameson Williams is another one, but I think he's more that deep guy. So, I mean, that could work too, but I don't know that really fits what they're trying to do. But I think Dotson really fits what they would do. However, that system is known for wanting receivers to block. So, London actually fits that role well with his size. Or Treylon Burks, he's not as physical as I'd like him to be. But I like Drake London there. And then you got like Calvin Austin from Memphis, if you want to go with like the explosive inside guy, a smaller receiver.
I've had Treylon Burks as wide receiver 1 for a while now. Probably not going to change. I anticipate that he's going to run sub 4.4 at the combine. Jeez. And that's just going to further cement that he's going to be wide receiver 1. I think if he's on the board for Cleveland, I think he's the guy. And you mentioned his position versatility there. Had played more reps in the slot than outside, but I think outside's where he should play most of the snaps. And I think he's a stud for the Browns and what they need if he is on the board when they pick.
Yeah, that one makes the most sense to me as well. The guys Bret brought up also make sense, but not necessarily where the Cleveland is picking 13 overall. I like Jahan Dotson. I think he's potentially a first-round pick, but that'd be a little rich in my opinion. And Calvin Austin I really like as well, but not in that first day at all. With him measuring in at 5'7", about like 160, 170 pounds. He's super fun, explosive, a very good separator, but I don't think you're going to see an NFL team draft a guy that high at that weight and size.
No, I'm just showing that you can get guys. I mentioned guys that would be all over the draft. So showing that they can get that impact receiver, whether day 1, day 2, or even day 3, there's an impact receiver that they can look at and add. They can even add 2. Who was the guy's name from Michigan they added last year?
Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yeah.
So like you have him and Landry, but Landry's more the inside guy, and so I think maybe they more want somebody on the outside. So maybe that guy like Burks or London fit better that way. But if you're looking at 13, now if you're looking lower, then you start looking at the guys I was talking about. But I think the Browns have a good opportunity to grab. I mean, this wide receiver class is really good anyway.
Get 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If one fails, grow. I mean, the Ravens drafted 2 tight ends that year to got Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, Mark Andrews. Hayden Hurst was that freak athlete, never worked out, and Andrews is still there being a stud. So,
yeah,
grab definitely. 2, one fails, whatever. You're muted, Josh. You muted your mic, I think, physically on top.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did this on our last show too. We keep doubling down on the receiver class because every year it just gets deeper and deeper
Yeah.
for us. So, and I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see a team just go and get another player in this draft instead of that receiver, even though we think that might be their biggest need because they can feel like they can go in the second round and get a talent, if not, probably not as great, but not far from that. So I could see maybe going in that second round, third round, getting that receiver, or like Brian said, maybe two. Brian, do you have anyone that you want to shout out or let people know? Like, look, you brought out EJ before that I had no clue about. And is there anyone else like that you want to let everyone know to go watch and evaluate?
Well, since Jake has single-handedly named almost every single Georgia player in this draft class, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up at least one South Carolina player. And I talked earlier about, the Bengals picking at the back end of round 1, and maybe an edge guy would be, a target there, either at 32 or up, trade back into the early part of the second round. Kingsley Enikbare is from South Carolina, is a tremendous player, hustle guy. He's got that nice dip and flattens quick to the quarterback that you love to see. Had a really good week of practice at the Senior Bowl. He's also another guy that I think you can move around a little bit, maybe kick inside on those pass downs. Love Kingsley Enikbare, and I think he's got a bright future in the NFL.
Bret, what do you got?
How about a guy that played really well in the Shrine game, and Ty Chandler from North Carolina? I think he was explosive. I think he kind of showed maybe he should have been at the Senior Bowl. I mean, the backs at the Senior Bowl, it's hard to really judge the backs like Kimball had told us before. So, but I think Ty Chandler took advantage of his opportunity transferring to North Carolina, saw that golden opportunity, those two backs leaving. I think he took advantage of it this year. I think he really showed his versatility in that Shrine game, and I think, he should be on everybody's radar. Probably a day 3 pick, but I think he's definitely a back that can come in and make an impact right away as a rookie, especially in the right system. So I'll be keeping an eye on him and how he grows. And don't sleep with this running back draft either. He still got plenty of talent. Dameon Pierce from Florida, I was very impressed with at the Senior Bowl. Pass blocking, love it. NFL coaches love to see that. You get snaps as a rookie if you can pass block. You get a lot more snaps away. So he was one of my favorite backs there.
So one of my favorite people on film for this year was Isaiah Likely. I feel like he got outshined at the Senior Bowl a little bit. I love the way he can lead block. I love his speed. I think he has soft hands. If you throw on his tape, you'll see him outrunning defensive backs. If you can throw him on film, please do, because he's a fun little chess piece that you can use on your team. I think he can play a little fullback, H-back. But he can be a little chess piece for you in the receiving game and probably play a little inline as well. I just like his game a lot, his speed, like I said, outrunning defensive backs. But anyway, I appreciate you guys coming on. We're running over our normal hour here. I apologize to you guys. But again, follow Brian at Deep Fried Draft. He is with Draft Countdown. Jake at Real Jake Vogel. Your show is, I'm trying to remember what it is off the top of my head right now.
It's the Sports Freak podcast. It's a new thing.
Sports Freak University, right?
Yep, Sports Freak University. Absolutely.
Definitely. And then Bret and I at DS Scouting. Appreciate you guys. Thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was fun. Hey, we'll have you again sometime.